Okay, I guess we can start now.
Yes.
So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the fourth session and webinar, and this session of Sparsh. And this session will be focusing towards the product development for healthcare. I am currently the program manager Rohini Chawla, who is looking after the Sparsh program.
There is a bandwidth issue. Just wait a minute.
So
आप म्यूट पे थे क्या? Thank you, Rohini, for the say. Hi, Vaibhav. Were we audible?
Yes, Ragini, you are audible.
And before this, did you hear about Rohini's?
No, I couldn't hear about any announcement.
Okay. Just hold on.
Sure.
okay, I guess there was some technical issue before, so I'll just start again. So this is Rohini, who is the program currently. I'm the program manager of Sparsh, and today we'll be conducting the fourth webinar in the webinar and workshop in the series and it will be covering the product development for healthcare. So we will be covering today the mapping of the patient's journey, the stakeholders analysis in the healthcare system, and the mapping patient needs to the problem statements. So this session will be covered by Mr. Bhagat, who is currently a team lead mechanical design at Nokark, and also prior to this he has also served as a senior manager product engineer. He has a diversified industry experience which comes from his tenure as a CTO at Enflux Motors and also as a product development intern at Technical University of Munich. He holds a BTech in mechanical engineering from IIT Kanpur. I have switched off my webcam because of the network issues, so I will request everyone to just kindly bear with me. My network is not that good at the moment. So coming back to I'll just give a brief about the Nokark company. So Nokark is one of the fastest growing hardware product startups in the country, and it was co-founded by IIT Kanpur graduates, and soon it became a very leading manufacturing of ICU ventilators in India after developing it in initial days of COVID-19 spread in 2020, and it happened in less than 90 days, and currently they're holding around 18 to 20% of the market share of ICU ventilators in India. The company is trying to expand their product portfolio across the range of medical devices now, and they are trying to reach the global market. And they offer tremendous value to the healthcare staff, and at the same time, they are trying to do a fair bit to improve the Indian healthcare infrastructure as well. So now I would like to request Sagni to take over the session and to continue with the workshop. And I hope you will enjoy today's workshop, and it will be an interesting session.
Thank you, Rohini. Thank you for the preliminary speech. Like before heading on to the session, I would like to give a brief about the scenario of this session. So it's like when startups in the medtech domain have to overcome many significant challenges when bringing a new product to market. Like along with the exorbitant cost throughout the product design and development process and into manufacturing, innovators must also ensure compliance with the regulations specific to the market in which they plan to sell their medical devices. So like if you have an idea for developing a new medical device, something intended to improve the quality of lives, it is their responsibility as an innovator to develop that product with the highest quality possible. So that means that is thorough understanding on stakeholders analysis in healthcare and mapping patient needs to problem statements and their journey. So this session will orient the Sparsh fellows who were selected in the cohort 2 and which the domain falls under maternal and child. And also it will give the audience a brief on this subject. But before I ask our eminent speaker for this session, Mr. Vaibhav Bhagat of Nokark, to take the lead and enlighten us on this topic, I would humbly ask the fellows to introduce themselves one by one. So we can start with Ms. Mohini, if you can introduce yourself.
Sagnik, if you can just ask them to raise their hands as well, because they have joined as attendees, so I'll have to unmute them.
Okay. Thanks, Sonalika. So Ms. Mohini, you can raise your hand so that we can unmute you and you can speak for yourself.
Good afternoon, everyone. Am I audible? Please confirm.
Yes, Mohini, we can hear you.
Yes, I'm Mohini Nikam and I have completed my master's in public health. And I've done research for 2 years with the background of infant and young child feeding practices, and looking forward to work in this maternal and child health with the same background. And yes, that is all about myself. Thank you.
Thank you, Boini. Swapnil, can you introduce yourself? Please raise your hand.
Hello everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Swapnil Ajit Bukshade. I completed my bachelor's in mechanical engineering in 2017 from University of Pune. After that, I joined as a research assistant in College of Engineering Pune. Here we developed various medical devices such as Ambu bag based mechanical respiratory system, hand rehabilitation for burn patient, and endoscopic holder for spine surgery. And currently, I am working on maternity and child health domain in IIT Kanpur. That is from my end, and thank you.
Thank you, Swapnil. Priyadarshini, can you raise your hand and speak for yourself?
Hi, am I audible?
Yes, Priyadarshini.
Okay, my name is Priyadarshini from Tamil Nadu. I completed my master's in nanoscience and technology. My master's project was to develop a mosquito repellent fabric for children, and my undergraduate degree was in biotechnology. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Priyadarshini. Ms. Neeru, can you please raise your hand?
Good afternoon, everyone. Myself Neeru from Haryana and completed my B Pharma from PDM University Bhadugar and M Pharma from PGIMS Rohtak, Haryana, and done my pharmacist job in PGIMS Rohtak, Haryana. And I was also incubated in ICER Lucknow. I'm working in maternal child health care at present. Thank you.
Thank you, Neeru.
Thank you.
Dr. Fayaz, if you can please raise your hand.
Hello.
Yes, Dr. Fayaz, we can hear you.
Am I audible? Yeah,
Yes. Yes.
Good afternoon, everyone. Dr. Faiz Abdi this side. I had done my MBBS from Eraz Lucknow Medical College and Hospital, Dr. RML University, and I have been working on biomedical research and digital health interventions for last 2 years.
Thank you, Dr. Faiz.
Thank you.
So we have done the introductory session of the 5 Sparsh Fellows. Now I request Mr. Bhagat to start the session and lead the session and enlighten us on this subject.
Thanks a lot, Sarnik, and thanks a lot, SISC IIT Kanpur, for inviting me for this wonderful session. I can see a lot of attendees, and I really didn't expect this huge turnaround. And a lot of people are already much aware about the medical devices and been working in the same field. So it's very good to see you guys. So as a mechanical team lead, I'm working in the core product development of Naukar. So I look into right from the customer requirement, the product requirements, to the delivery of the product, even the manufacturing side of it. So being in this field and having this experience, I'm really delighted to share you my experience on the topic. So I'm just gonna start the session. I'm gonna share my screen. Just let me know once you. Okay.
Sure. Sure.
Is it visible?
No, actually.
I have to share the entire screen.
Yeah, it's visible now.
Is it?
Yeah.
Can you see this product development overview window?
Yes, I can see now.
Okay. So guys, first of all, let me tell you what a medical device is. So as per the ISO 13485 definition, a medical device is anything which is used for a patient from his journey, which starts from symptoms to the treatment and everything in between. So it can be a proper device, a mechanical machine, a thing which can cure something, or it can be a software which can help to monitor some status of the patient, or it can be a service-based platform also. So all of these comes under the umbrella of medical device. And since we are not being specific about any particular type of product, whether it be a hardware product or a software product, so today I'm gonna keep it very general so that all of you can understand the general concept about the product development of any kind of medical device or the healthcare devices that are in general. So the product development basically starts from product identification. So basically, product identification is the stage where you identify which type of product you want to make for which market or for what kind of problem. So definitely there is going to be a very big phase before the product identification, which is the product research or the market research phase. After which the product identification and the product development process will start. So I'm just going to give you an overview what happens after the product identification, and then we'll come to the previous part, which is the main content of this this lecture, this session. So once you have done the product identification, you basically go on to set the product requirements. Basically, there will be a product requirement document. We call it as PRD. So at Nokark, we follow this process that for every user requirement that comes, we put it into the product requirement document, which will convert it into an engineering requirement, which is known as ERD. So the engineering requirement document will be the guide for the engineers or the designers to how to design the product, what all features need to be there in the product, what all risks can be there, all of these kind of things. So once you create the engineering requirement document, you run a brief feasibility analysis. That is the proposed solution feasible or not? Can it be manufactured? Can it be, is it still solving the user needs or not? Those kind of feasible checks you do. Is it financially possible to achieve that or not? So feasibility analysis will be done. So once feasibility analysis is approved, then you go on to the design and development stage. So here you will actually design and develop the product, which will involve a lot of testing with the users. It will involve regulatory checks and n number of things, after which you will go for the product launch. So basically all of these steps are the part of product development when it has started. So let's go to the stages of identifying a product. So basically what all steps do you need to take care of, or what all steps do you need to carry to in turn come up that I want to make this product or I want to solve this problem. So that is the market research and the product research phase. So the basic idea behind every product in a healthcare sector or a medical device sector is the patient's needs. Okay, so if you find out the patient needs, if you find out the patient problems, you are eventually gonna make the device which will solve that problem. So patient is at the center of everything. So all of the medical device industries, they work on this model which is known as patient centric. So you have to keep the patient in mind and build around all the solutions. Then various stakeholders will come in picture. So let's say I'll give you an example. Let's say if there is a pharmaceutical company who wants to make a patient journey. Okay, so for them, the patient and the needs will be related to the medicines or some disposable items, right? So the first thing a patient will come up is the symptoms. Let's say there is a patient who is a 15-year-old boy. So we define this initially before starting the patient journey. This is called as patient persona. So you imagine a person, how old he is or she is, what kind of demographics does that person live in, what is the social attribute of that person, economical attribute of that person, and then you build up journey of that patient. So this is called as patient persona. So let's consider there is a 15-year-old boy who is experiencing some fever symptoms. So this is where his patient journey starts, not from the point that he will come to a hospital and then the treatment will start. You have to keep in mind that the patient is already experiencing something because of which he is going to a hospital or a clinic, whatever it is. So it starts from the patient symptoms. So if he has some symptoms, then he will maybe go on to book an appointment for a physician. Okay. So this is step 1 of the patient journey. This becomes the step 2. And once he has got the appointment of the physician, he will visit and communicate the problems he is facing with the doctor, based upon which the physician or the doctor will recommend some medicines to the patient. Now from here, there are 2 steps which are involved typically. One is that the patient or his family members will directly go to a pharmacy and buy those medicines. Or there will be some tests which will need to conduct so that the doctor can again review the results of the test and then correct the prescriptions or give the prescriptions altogether. And based upon these 2, the patient will start the prescription. He will take regularly. And eventually is going to get cured. And if this does not happen, then he'll go back to this stage. So this cycle will continue. Right. So you can see that there are a lot of steps involved in right from the symptoms to the cure. And all of these steps will have various people involved in it, apart from the patient. So in the initial, let's say the step number 1, his family members will be involved, so, who are known as influencers. So the people who are not directly the stakeholders in any of the journey are called as influencers. Okay. After that, once he has to book an appointment, he has to call the clinic. So then at the clinic or the hospital, there will be some hospital's operational team who will take care of the booking and all. So here comes the, let's call it hospital's operational group. Once he visits and communicates the problem, he'll do it with the doctor itself. And then for the recommendation and prescription, it's the same stakeholder, which is the doctor. But there might be involvement of nurses also. So we'll also consider, although they are not directly connected here, we'll also consider the clinical staff which is there in the hospital. So these clinical staff are nothing but the support group of the doctor, which will help for the treatment or for the prescription, whatsoever it is. Then once he goes to the pharmacy, there is one more stakeholder involved, the medical store basically. Then once he goes to the laboratory, then there is the lab and lab in charge. And then that's it. So as you can see, all these people highlighted in the blue, these are the stakeholders in the entire patient journey. So this is how you identify the stakeholders. You list out all the steps and you find out that who all will be involved in those steps, directly influencing or directly affecting the patient's the journey at the respective steps. So if I'm going to so if I'm going to write down these steps, let's say here, this is step 1, S1 is step 1. And so on. Okay. And if I'm going to write down the experience of the patient, that at every step he is interacting with someone, is the experience positive or is it negative? And we'll also write the stakeholders. Okay. So at step number 1, he's experiencing the fever symptoms. So that might not be a very good experience. So it goes down here. At step number 2, he's booking an appointment. So here comes the role of us people who are working on a solution. Let's say some one of us will work on an application which does this end-to-end, right? From booking to prescription to everything. So here is an opportunity where you can, if there is a negative experience, let's say what used to happen a few years back is that we need to call the hospital, or sometimes if they don't pick up the calls, we have to even visit the hospital even for the appointment. So that was a kind of a negative experience, which is now translating into a positive experience because of the new solutions that have come to, for example, what Tracto is doing. So here we have an opportunity. So this experience can be anything. So let's say I put it here, it's neutral. Then the patient will visit to the doctor. So the visit, how is the facility of the hospital, how good is the doctor in communicating the problems with the patient? That is also important part. So that way it can be either positive or negative, right? So let's consider, we'll just go with an example that, okay, this thing is positive, this thing is also positive. Then you go for step 4, which is the prescription. So here also the prescription can be something which is very costly or has been given for very a longer period or something like that. So that can also obviously it can be the need that it has to be like that, but that also comes in the patient experience, that is it a positive experience or not, and so on, going for pharmacy, going for test labs. So eventually you will plot a graph like this, and you will analyze, and basically you will realize and analyze that, okay, these are the areas where there is an opportunity for an improvement. So that is how you identify the problems. Okay, you have identified that, let's say step number 4 or let's say step number 5, the pharmacy part. So the patient has to, go from the hospital to a different location for the, for taking the medicines, for purchasing the medicines. So the solution could be that those two things can be integrated, some sort of that. So this is how you identify the problems. So to identify the problems, you need to first identify the steps and the stakeholders involved in it. Now, if I just write down the stakeholders involved in each of these steps, let's say the S2, booking an appointment, it was hospital, operational group. Then step number 3, it is the doctor, and 4 is it is also the doctor. And then here goes the pharmacy and lab and so on. So all of these becomes your stakeholder. So if I'm going to perform a stakeholder analysis, that what is the role of the stakeholder? Is there a problem which the stakeholder is also feeling, because of which he or she is not able to deliver the optimum outcome for the patient? Okay, that will be the next step. So I hope this much is clear. So we'll go on to the stakeholder analysis after that. So if I'm going to, write down the names of the stakeholder again. Let's say for example, these are the 5 stakeholders which were involved in the patient's journey. So what we can do is we can do a basic analysis in the form of using a RASIC matrix. So what a RASIC matrix is basically is, so R stands for responsible party, A stands for accountable party, S stands for supporting party, I is informed, and C is consultant. So basically, out of these 5 stakeholders, there will be, at each step, there will be someone who is responsible for that step, someone who is accountable for that step, someone who is supporting that step to happen, or someone who is just getting the information that, okay, this has been done, or someone can be consulting for that step, not directly involved, but as a consultant. So again, coming back to those steps, let's say out of these steps, we are going to just write down who is responsible and accountable and these things for the respective steps. So let's say for the step number 1, these stakeholders are not directly involved. So let's start from step number 2, booking an appointment. So here you basically have the involvement of the hospital operational group. So these are the responsible party here. Then the doctor is informed that, okay, such booking has happened and you have to be prepared for whatever the consultation you will provide. Then these people are not directly involved at this current step. Let's say for step number 3, you have visit and okay, so here the doctor is involved directly. So he is the responsible person. He or she is the responsible person. Operational group is just informed that this has been happening. Nurse might be directly responsible or might not be. So we'll just for now consider them as the supporting staff. And then pharmacy and lab person do not come in picture. So this way, if you write down at every step who is responsible, accountable, and all these things, you will get to know that what gaps are there in the process. So there might be a chance that, okay, there is a gap that here in some of the steps, there is a responsibility gap or accountability gap. So there you can come in picture to provide a solution which will bridge that gap. So this is another way of identifying opportunities to work in. I'll give you an example of, let's say, ventilator. So the problem with the disposables or the consumable items of ventilator is that they need to be regularly supplied, and if the stock of the supplies is over at the hospital end, then the hospital has to purchase it from the manufacturer itself. So we are creating a solution wherein we'll give the application to the hospital's procurement department, and they will have the inventory listed in itself. So whenever there is a shortage of inventory, so there will be some backup stock. So whenever the backup stock is about to get used, the reordering will automatically happen. So this was a gap in the whole entire journey, which we are fulfilling, and therefore we can make some business out of it also. Rather than just selling ventilators, we are now into consumables and these things also. So that is how we are expanding the business. So you once you do this kind of analysis, you'll realize that okay, these are still the gaps which needs to be filled. Now what can happen is, already there can be some competitor who is doing that, who is filling that gap, which is not the direct stakeholder here, but who is indirectly helping the stakeholders to improve upon whatever the task they are performing. So then comes the analysis which we need to do is related to competitors. So if I go back here, so right now we are just going back and summarizing whatever has been discussed till now. So we are in the product identification part, and we have covered the journey of patient and what the problems the patient face at every step, and who all stakeholders are involved. And then we analyze that what all gaps are there between the stakeholders, or what all opportunities can be there where you can pitch in. So definitely there will be competitors who are already doing similar things, working on similar solutions. So now we need to go on to the competitor analysis. So the best way to do a competitor analysis is to do a SWOT analysis using a SWOT method. So what SWOT does is, it stands for strength, weakness, opportunity, and threats. So let's say there is a competitor, just like I gave you an example that Nukark is working on a solution, an application which will directly notify the procurement team of the hospital to buy the consumables, and the reordering will happen again. So this application has already been made by some other competitor. So what I'll do is I'll do the SWOT analysis of that competitor, and again see if is it really worth to make the same kind of a solution, or is it something that the competitor is missing, wherein I can make a unique solution, and then the USP will help me to sell my product in a better way than the competitor. So for that we need to do this SWOT analysis. So in the SWOT analysis, we basically write the strength, weakness, opportunity, and threats of the competitor. So the strength of the competitor is basically it can be, let's say, that the competitor is already there in the market for the last 5 years, and he has most of the customers. So the application of the competitors is used by most of the customers. So his strength would be that he has the market presence. Okay, but the application which is made by the competitor, it might not be that much user friendly, or the UI is not that good, so that people are not able to use it very properly, or the notifications or the reminders are not that great. So the weakness of the competitor becomes that user experience and reminders are not good. Just writing it down in basic English, but definitely while working on such things, you need to detail it out, and there can be multiple points. So this can be point number 1, then there can be point number 2, like that. Then the weakness, so this we wrote as strength. Okay. Now, the opportunity that we have here is to basically work upon the weaknesses of the competitor, make an app which is better in the sense what the competitor's weakness have, and obviously the market presence the competitor has. It is never 100%. There is always some market share which is untapped, which you can go on exploring, and then you have an opportunity to start from there. Some kind of opportunities that tap the untapped market and provide improved application. Okay, now what threat can happen here is that if we are going to do this, maybe the competitor will get aware that okay, there is such company who's working on that, and then they can make a altogether a different improved product, so that the weaknesses are already overcome. So in that case, what are you going to do? So here comes the role of intellectual property. So you need to be very careful about whatever designs you're making, whatever patents or whatever ideas you're generating, to file them in patents or design applications, so that no one can infringe those and no one can copy those, so that yours is a unique product, and then this threat will not happen. So you, as we have gone through this example, you can do this SWOT analysis for all the competitors. You can also do the SWOT analysis not for the competitors alone. You can do it for these people also. Let's say a lab, a pharmacy person can be a competitor for the solution that you're thinking. Once you do the SWOT analysis, you'll get a lot of opportunity points to work upon. Let's say you have done such 10 SWOT analysis, you directly get 10 points from which you can define the product requirements. So coming to the next point, that how do we define the user requirements to the product requirements. So you can use these points for those for that requirement document. So setting up the product requirements. So as I've already shown you that we at Nokarkar are working on a product requirement document for listing all the points, the problems the user is facing, or listing all the opportunities that can be helpful for us in the product development. So we create such product requirement document. So a product requirement document will have the following, if I would go like how the document index will look like. So it will have the following section. So first is the competitor landscape. So here you will list down what are the key competitors who are already there in the market, who are working on the same solution that you are intending to provide. Do the SWOT analysis, list down the points where you can differentiate. And you can go on to the user experience mapping. So just like we did a patient journey, you can also do a user journey. So a patient can be a user in some cases, or the user can be a different person. So let's say for a product like ventilator, the user is a doctor and the patient is just the patient. But for for a product which is like an application for booking an appointment for the some medication, so the user and the patient can be the same person. So the patient himself can use the product, so he can be the user. So after this, we go on to the part where we want to define the product language or the brand language of the product and the company. So basically, you have done some analysis in 1, 2, and 3. Now you want to make a solution or make a product which is different from what the competitors are doing. So here we go on to defining the and then we go on to feature definition level. So what all features the product should have on a very detailed manner. So this all things go in the product requirement document. And the most important part which comes after this is the regulatory requirement. So for whatever product you create, there will be some regulatory requirement which you need to fulfill so that you can sell that product in the market in that particular country. So let's say for US, it is the FDA which is doing the regulatory checks. In Europe, it is the CE body, European MDR is there. And in India, we have CDSCO and various bodies which are coming now. So that becomes a very crucial thing while also, setting up the product requirements. So you cannot forget to define regulatory requirements, because regulatory requirements will be like a constraint or a guide for you in which you have to fit in the first 5 points. Sarnik, I think my sync is not happening for whatever I'm writing. So I'll just tell it directly that there will be a 6 point below this, which is the regulatory requirements. So you have to comply the regulatory requirements, and in that boundaries, you have to play around with the first 5 points to set the proper product requirements. So I think that is it from my side in brief. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
Thank you, Vaibhav. Thank you for the exhaustive pedagogy from your side. So I would request the fellows, if they are having any questions, you can raise your hands, or anyone in the room can raise your hand, and we will be giving you the rights to speak, and you can ask your query.
Yes.
Yeah, you can speak, Mr. Singh.
Yeah, hi, Vaibhav. Thanks for the talk. I just wanted to know that is NOCARC is solving the problem or the gap of supply and demand of the ventilators or the additional medical devices for the hospitals?
So are you asking that is NOCARC supplying ventilators, or what is it exactly doing? Is it a question?
So did you solve the gap? Like first you identified that there is a gap in which you have, let's say, competitors are also there, but there is an urgent need of the ventilators, and when you identified that gap, so that you decide that this problem can be solved by designing a set of medical devices, like one can be a ventilator. So is this the problem which is being solved?
Yes. So we have already launched the product, the ventilator, back in 2020 itself, and we have almost sold 3,500 units of it in the last 2 years. So it has been a huge success for us, and we have been able to successfully deliver that. Yes.
So again, my question just was the gap which you guys identified, right?
Yes. So at that phase, the problem was that the ventilators which were in the market, those have to be imported. So there was a huge lead time, and because of the COVID situation, the imports could not happen. So there had to be a solution which is indigenous, which can be manufactured here and supplied here itself. And we worked on the problem. This was a huge gap which we solved.
Okay, thanks for letting me know.
Thank you for your question.
Okay, we have our next query from Mr. Prashant. Yeah. You can speak, Mr. Shukla.
Vaibhav, could you please share your user experience? You had created a user experience mapping diagram. Could you please share with us once again? That would be helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, can you see that?
Yeah.
So, Mr. Shukla, can we proceed to the next question? Or you are done?
Yeah, please.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to the next query, we have Mr. Rawat.
Yeah, I'm audible.
Yeah.
Yeah. So hi, Vaibhav. It was very, a good presentation, I could say. I have two questions. So first one is, can you also, tell us like how it will be different, the method which you use, it is like for patient, how it will be different for B2B. Let's say we are targeting, some kind of already well-established organization. So how it will be different. Second question is, can you also share your experience as a designer? So what kind of, process or, what you follow usually while designing any product? From mechanical point of view or design point of view, I'm talking about like for silicon mold or then mold, like how can we reduce that time gap?
Okay, understood. So the first question is irrespective of the type of product that you are making. It can be hardware, a software, a service-based product, and also irrespective of is it a B2C type of product or a B2B type of product, because these analyses are very general. So the application, when you go in the detail, it will maybe slightly change there. For B2C, the user, the user journey becomes very important. But for B2B, maybe it is not that much important. There you will need to, as a customer, you need to see that. You can then say that customer journey. So your customer is the business which you will be supporting. So then you need to figure out what the customer journey is, right? So what the customer is going through, and the patient can be customer's customer, basically. So still this will apply to that. So that is not a problem. And coming to the next question, so we basically, let's say for the, okay, I'll bring in some more so that you can you see the screen, this Excel sheet?
Yes.
Okay, great. So this is kind of a brief process that we have been doing at Nucar. So once you are done with the product research phase and identified that what product you need to make, we go on to the proof of concept stage. So there we, for various different things, and so let's say for UI, we create these wireframes and design language, interaction design and all. But for, let's say, for the actual physical product or the parts that we need to make, we go on for various prototyping methods for the POC, like 3D printing to start with. So once we validate the product requirements are meeting or not, the performance requirement and the regulatory checks are done, then for the initial production, which is known as pilot batch production, it will not be more than 50 units. It will just be for product trials at various hospitals or various customers. So for that, we definitely use, just like you said, silicon molds and vacuum casting process for the plastic parts, which are bigger. And for the smaller parts, we directly go for injection molding only. Because the problem with products like ventilator is that the accuracy of the part, those really matter. So we anyway have to go for injection molding to achieve that accuracy.
So have you also done these mechanical tests, like if there is some mechanical test required for ventilator? So if you are going for silicon mold, so all these parameter, basically your material will change, right? So how you overcome with that issue?
Okay, so definitely there are going to be some tests which are not going to get satisfied because of some prototyping method, let's say for example, the impact test or the shock and vibration test. So those we just wait for the final injection molding parts to come, but those tests won't affect the internal performance of the device. So the other trials can still continue. The final certification can only be done on the final parts which are being going to use.
Okay, so you basically hold those tests.
Yeah, we basically hold those tests, and we do not launch the product before that test. We only do the user trials.
Okay. Okay. So for clinical validation, we can use that silicon mold. That's what you are telling?
Yes, yes, that is allowed. But you have to give a proper justification for that, and there is a process for that. You have to go through the ethical committee and all. So that depends product to product, but it can be done.
Yeah. Thanks.
Okay. Next we have Dr. Prabhakar. Dr. Prabhakar, you can speak for yourself. You're on mute, Dr. Prabhakar. Okay, I think we lost somewhere. Okay, next we have Swapnil, one of our Sparsh fellow. Hi, Swapnil.
Hello, I'm audible.
Yeah.
I have two questions. The first is, how many time it will take from the concept concept design to the actual launch of the product? And parallel to that, I have another question is, what is how you achieve in the very tough time of COVID to develop a ventilator in a very successful way?
Okay, so the first question, it depends on which market you want to sell in. Let's say if you want to sell in the US market, then the FDA certification time and those processes are very long, and therefore the time increases. But let's say if you want to sell in Indian market, where the certification requirements are less as compared to the US, then the typical product like a ventilator, it is developed in less than a year, end to end, from the conceptualization to the certification. So coming to the second question, the product that we built during the pandemic, so we had got a lot of relaxations in terms of some of the regulatory requirements, especially for the pandemics. Every company had got that, so that they can roll out the ventilators much faster. So because of those reasons, and because of the reason that we had stick to all the manufacturing processes which have a very shorter lead time. Let's say the enclosure which is made of the ventilator, it is made in sheet metal. The display that we had used in the ventilator, it was a tablet which we integrated with the device. So such kind of steps we had to take so that we can shorten the production lead time and even the development lead time. And then we had to stick to very few components so that the integration becomes easy, so that the risks become lower. So all of these smart steps we had to take so as to reduce the development time to just 90 days. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
Thank you, Swapnil. Next we have Anusha.
Hi, sir. This is Anusha. So I want to ask only this thing about the problems you faced while manufacturing all this certifications thing. I just want to ask, but it was already answered. And the last one I want to ask, the customer feedbacks. Is there analysis was done on the customer feedback and improvisation was done on the current product?
Sorry, I couldn't get your question about the customer feedback.
Is there any analysis was done on the customer feedback and the same was developed on the same is going to be developed?
Yes, so definitely. So we call it as post-market surveillance. It is a very standard practice in the medical industry, wherein you take the customer feedbacks, the field failures, you look into the performance of the ventilator or the medical device in general, regarding how the unit has been effectively cured the patient. So all of these data comes to us, and then we channelize it to the product engineering team, wherein the team makes the design improvements, and then
Okay, so there is no such type of analysis. We just take the feedbacks from them, gather what one place, and work on those features. That's all. There is no analysis, anything.
Definitely, the process of taking the feedback and then analyzing the data, there comes the analysis part, which is very specific to the product or the part in the product.
Okay. And one more thing I want to ask, after this feedback and improvisation, what other steps need to be taken for certifications, means regulatory regulations? If in suppose this is the innovation, you have found the problem gap and you have innovated some development, and this innovation doesn't have any standards, okay, then what the steps need to be taken in order to get the approval that this device can be marketed?
Okay, so basically, just I would need more details on your question. Is this device already been certified with a regulatory standard, or
no, it's an innovation. Okay, there is no regulations are there for the device currently in India, let's suppose say, then how to make it proper, means regulate to validate to market in India?
So in that case, yeah, this happens in some device. Let's say if there are devices which already exist, like your device, those are called as predicate devices. And for the innovation that you have done, if it is a completely new device, it does not fall in that category. So for that, you need to set up internal standards in your organization, and you need to implement those tests and give the justification to whatever the local bodies. For example, you have made an internal testing procedure, or you have made an internal validation procedure for your new product, which is following the risk management process, which is not having any risks in it. So whenever the patient is using it, there is no harm to the patient or the user or anyone, and the performance is being maintained by the device even after a few number of years. Such kind of things you do it internally, and then you can proceed for that. And eventually, if such devices are coming in the market on a large number, the regulatory bodies will definitely come in for the regulations. So at that point of time, you can consider that. Or as a general rule of thumb, you can consider the foreign regulatory requirements that are already similar for the devices which are similar to yours. Because most of the times the Indian regulatory requirements will follow whatever the FDA or US or the European body have done. So you can consider that after a few years, those requirements will definitely come, and you can start so that you can start complying those requirements from the day one. So that you can do.
Yes, thank you so much. Last thing, when I develop the internal standard and internal validations to my device, will that can be taken to any regulatories and can be make it as a standard? Like this test can be done for this as such. Is there anything like that regulatories are working? Which regulatory is exactly working on that? Do you have any idea?
Okay, so it depends on the type of product. So if you can tell me the product classification class or anything like that, I can maybe add up to it.
Okay. Thank you, but I cannot reveal it. It's confidential. Thank you for these all answers. I'll be checking again. We'll work on this things.
Thank you, Anusha. Wherever we have very few questions in the Q&A box, I will just read it. So one we have from an anonymous attendee. The person is asking if we develop any nutritional supplement in edible form, like protein powder, do we have to do any clinical test and patient reaction to the product? If yes, what will be the procedure and from whom we need to get the approval?
Okay, so yes, you have to do the, it completely falls under the pharmaceutical domain. So there are already guidelines and standards for that. And for such products, you have to do the trials. It may be that because this product is not new, you don't have to do 100% of the things, but definitely there will be some critical things that you need to show compliance to, and only then you can move on. So there will be such detailed guidelines definitely there.
Next, we have from Shreya. She is asking, user experience mapping differ from place to place. So how can we find a perfect method to find maximum customers?
So I would say if it is differing from place to place, then the research has to be broadened. You have to consider the wide range of users that you are targeting. Otherwise, then the product will be specific to few, age categories or demographics, users. That should not happen. You have to widen your approach, or you have to define that, okay, I just want to have my product in this range, and then just target those users.
And lastly, we have Mr. Subrata. He is asking how to identify the pilot sites for the product testing.
How to identify what? Sorry?
Identify the pilot sites.
Pilot size. Okay. So, okay.
SITES, pilot sites for the product testing.
Okay, sites, you mean the locations?
Yes, location.
That the product should be tested on. So I would like to then go to some fundamental thing here. So whenever you are doing a product development, you have to do it in collaboration. You must, I would recommend that you must do it in collaboration with some healthcare authority, a healthcare body, maybe some hospital, or maybe some organization, so that you get the feedback. You close the feedback loop quite quickly, rather than doing a complete product development and then going for a pilot and then going for the user testing, which is a very long process. If you are collaborating it with some body, then you can get the feedbacks, and the improvements can be done very faster. So then the pilot size depends on how much those bodies are, how elaborative your work has to be. So it has to be, it is dependent completely on the type of product. So you can, as a thumb rule, you can take it. Let's say in India, the number of new ventilators which are sold every year is around 8 to 10,000. So from that data, you can then take a ratio that how much the pilot size should be, so that I test out every geography in India for different type of patients. Let's say there are 3 type of patients for a ventilator: a neonatal, a pediatric, and an adult patient. Then there are 4 or 5 diseases for which the ventilator is given. So 3 multiplied by, let's say, 5, 15. 15 into the number of geographies you want to test it. You want to test a ventilator in Guwahati, you want to test in Trivandrum, in Delhi, in Mumbai, these kind of things. Then you can decide what the pilot site should be, or you can decide based upon how much the number of sales of that product happen in India, and then take a ratio of it. So such kind of approach you have to apply.
Okay. We have no more questions. We are at the end of the session. If anyone has some query, I have dropped my mail ID in the chat box. You can email me, and I can just refer it to Mr. Bhagat here, and I can get back to you for your query. Okay. So we are at the end of the session, and we are going to close it. Thank you, Mr. Bhagat, for this wonderful session. Your views on comparative analysis using SWOT, product development overview, patient journey, and experience mapping was exceptional. Thank you for your time. Thank you so much for your valuable time for this session and taking up the queries and giving them the answers. So we would like to close here. Have a nice day, Mr. Bhagat. Thank you so much.
Thank you everyone for joining the session.
Thank you.